Reset. Oh, yeah, this is logging on.
Oh,
Oh, so she sent it to David too.
Good evening, and welcome to the regular twice monthly meeting of Westminster's Mayor and Common Council. I'm pleased to note that as our community reopens, the mayor and council are once again able to meet publicly here in our chamber in City Hall. Even as our meetings become open to the public again, they will continue to be available and streamed live on the city's Facebook page, as well as the Community Media Center channel and website. Now we'll begin every meeting as we do with the pledge of the flag, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. For those interested in following along, copies of tonight's agenda and the entire information packet that the council will be using are available online on the city's website. First, we'll consider approval of the minutes. We have minutes from the meeting of the mayor and council on May 24th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I make
so
a
moved.
motion.
Second.
Been a motion by Ms. Gilbert and a second by Mr. Dayhoff. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have it, and the ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. We have one presentation tonight from the mayor, and Madam Mayor, I will turn it over to you.
All right, we have a proclamation tonight for July as Recreation and Parks Month. So I'd like to ask Ms. Gruber to please come over. I got my reading glasses on.
Want me to hold it out? I can hold it out over here.
Nah, then it'll be too small. All right, so whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the city of Westminster, Maryland, and our parks and recreation programs are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and region. And parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And parks and recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And parks and recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community. And parks and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife. And our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month. And the city of Westminster, Maryland recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now, therefore, I, Dr. Mona Becker, Mayor of the City of Westminster, in conjunction with the Common Council, do hereby proclaim July as Park and Recreation Month in the City of Westminster, Maryland. Adopted this day, 12th day of June, 2021. Thank you. I think we hold it for Shannon, don't we? This is the first one, so. So we do it this way. Okay. Here, I'll hold this side. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Would you like to say anything?
just that we always look forward to serving our community, and we are planning an activity every day during the month of July. So please stay tuned to our website and Facebook page for details. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Abby.
All right, thank you, Mayor Becker, and thank you, Ms. Gruber, and to your entire team for doing such a great job for the citizens of Westminster on Parks and Recreation. We have one item on the consent calendar this evening. May I have a motion?
So moved. I'll second it.
There's been a motion by Mr. Chiavacci to approve the consent calendar, a second by Mr. Dayhoff. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have it, and the ayes have it, and the consent calendar is adopted. Report from the mayor. Mayor Becker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have a few things I'd just like to say this evening, so I'll keep it brief. But first of all, I want to say thank you to all the city staff for being welcoming and helpful over the last 4 weeks as I've taken office. So it's been nice to get into the building, see some faces that I know and meet some new people over the last several weeks. So I've really appreciated that as well, and for answering all my questions when I have them. So I do appreciate that. Just the second thing I'd like to touch on, Chief, I know I've spoken to you about this as well, that I've had really great reports about officers on bicycles in the city. I've heard a lot of positive comments from residents. I fully support these initiatives in community policing, and seeing the officers on bicycles have been really fantastic. The next thing, just real quick, last week on Wednesday, I welcomed the Carroll County Chamber of Commerce to 45 West Main Street. And this was probably the first organization that was not city related that we had in our new administrative buildings. They held their executive board meeting there in the morning, and I encouraged them to get out and take a little tour of the building and spend a little bit of time there, and they really enjoyed it. And so I really look forward to opening that building up to the community and hosting some more outside groups within that space. I'm working with McDaniel College on the McDaniel Welcome, which will take place in August, which seems like it's far away, but it's not. I think it's probably within about 8 weeks, where there will be about 400 or so new freshmen on campus at McDaniel. And this is a program that Mayor Dominic had set up, where he welcomed the students in Westminster for a day during their orientation. And then the last thing, I'm not going to talk too long on this in case someone else wants to talk about this later, but I, along with Councilwoman Gilbert, Councilman Chiavacci, and Councilman Dayhoff, attended the Carroll County Veterans Independence Project ribbon cutting event today, which was really well attended, and was really nice to see this open. Even though it's just outside the city limits, it's still going to provide some vital services for veterans in Westminster. So that is all, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Mayor Becker. Move on now to reports from standing committees. We'll begin with the Arts Council. Mr. Dayhoff.
Thank you, Mr. President. Starting today, we have a unique sculpture exhibit at the Arts Council featuring our good friend Tom Sterner. And that's going to run from June 14th to July 24th. More information is available on the Arts Council website, and the public is invited to a free reception on Thursday, June the 17th from 5 to 7. And then also exhibiting this summer in the community gallery will be a show called Adapt and Inspire. And this is the annual exhibit of the Carroll County Public School art teachers. And it's always a really, really fun exhibit. It'll be an eclectic mix of mixed media assemblage and collage and a number of different styles. The exhibit will be on view from June the 28th through July the 31st. And there'll be a reception for this exhibit on Thursday, July the 1st from 5 to 7. And that'll be my report, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dayhoff. Economic and Community Development. Mr. Hoff.
No report besides the fact that we're going to be working towards scheduling our first meeting. So that's it for right now.
Very good, thank you. I have nothing from the Finance Committee. Ms. Gilbert, anything from the Personnel Committee?
Nothing other than our first meeting will be on June 23rd.
Actually, I take that back. Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. I did want to mention that Mr. Deutsch and Ms. Colson and I did have a conversation this afternoon with the folks from Wye River Associates to just begin sort of talking through, how we're going to take a look at figuring out what to do with the $15+ million that the city is going to be receiving from the federal government in two chunks over the next year or so. The first of which is relatively imminent. We'll be having a meeting of the full finance committee soon with them. They wanted to get a better idea of what we were looking for so that they can report back to us in a meaningful way before we get them ready together. So we'll have that session soon, and we'll be sharing more information with all of you in the near future. With that, we'll move to the Public Safety Committee. Mr. Chiavacci.
Couple brief things. Number one, there was a couple incidents of some cars being broken into in a few places around town. That was all able, through the good hard work of our police department, to be tracked back to one individual specifically. He was arrested, I believe, for the second time. Right? Is that right, Chief? Doing the same thing. Hopefully, the courts will see it a little differently this time and maybe keep him out of town for a little longer. They also did identify a suspect related to a couple of graffiti incidents here in town, which is also good. So that's a positive thing. Lastly, the chief and deputy chief and some of the other folks within the department have been doing a good job gearing up for some community outreach events now that we can do things out in public again, that the pandemic is behind us. So they've already got some things scheduled. I know you'll probably talk a little more in your report about that, but they're making a real concerted effort to make sure that they're working hard to continue to have that good relationship that they enjoy. I know the mayor mentioned something about the bike patrols, and they're very cognizant of the fact that it takes work to continue to have that kind of good relationship with the general public, and they're working hard to make sure that continues. And I'm certainly very supportive of that. I know Councilman Hoff is, as well as all of us are. So that's it, Mr. President.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chiavacci. Public Works Committee.
So Public Works, we the only real thing I'm going to report on is we're making some headway related to our Pure Water initiative. So that's a very positive thing. We've got some tentative things lined up relative to public information related to that project, and Pure Water is our water reuse initiative. And I believe things are going well on the actual physical side. Is physical the right word? I guess the practical side of that application. But we're making some headway on the public forward-facing part of that, and there'll be more information to come soon related to potentially an event and some things like that to kind of kick it off. So things are moving forward, and obviously we need to continue to keep pushing that because, of course, I think we're all in agreement that ultimately that's going to be very helpful for us relative to both water supply as well as sewer, because it potentially helps address both of those issues. So that's all I have for Public Works, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chiavacci. Recreation and Parks, Mr. Dayhoff.
Thank you, Mr. President. The installation has been completed at the Dayhoff Farm Park. And we're looking forward to having a ribbon cutting for that sometime soon. It's just absolutely fantastic. If anyone has a chance to stop by and check it out, it's a really neat art installation. And we are not going to have a meeting in June. We're going to look forward to a meeting in July. The Recreation and Parks Advisory Board is a very exciting board, and I'm really excited to work with those folks. I believe that'll be my report. Perhaps Ms. Gruber can elaborate later upon the Dayhoff Farm Park because it's really cool. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Dayhoff, and I have nothing from the Technology Committee. We'll move on now to council comments and discussion. It's the opportunity for council members to raise any other issues that aren't part of a committee agenda that they wanted to share with their colleagues. And we'll begin with Mr. Dayhoff.
We've had two really neat events in town recently. The autonomous vehicle event was really good. It was really well attended. I think we've discussed that before, but I don't want to take anything away from Ms. Gilbert, but the Carroll County Veterans Independence Project reception this afternoon it was really exciting to see so many of the community players there. Being a Vietnam era veteran myself, I really appreciate the public's attitude towards veterans. It's a little bit different from when the war was over for us. So thank you, Ms. Gilbert, and thank you for the Carroll County Veterans Independence Project for that. I think that'll be my comment. I've also gotten a lot of really positive feedback about the bike patrols. I really appreciate that. That's been good. That's been some really exciting stuff. So that'll do it, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gilbert.
Yes, I have a couple of things. I wanted to, since I feel like it's been like forever since we were sitting here, but it's only been like 2.5 weeks. I want to thank those who participated in the Memorial Day commemorations. We at the Westminster Cemetery and the Vietnam Memorial. I, like many in Westminster, were disappointed that for another year, COVID postponed the official parade. But we are kind of looking forward to next year when all the ceremonies will occur to honor those who have died serving in the military, and that the American Legion will have the complete parade for us. I want to thank the officers and Public Works Department who helped with Art in the Park this year. Art in the Park seemed like it was a great success. It was a beautiful day. So it was great to see folks about in the community and in the lawn, across the parking lot. And I want to thank the vendors that were willing to participate. Also, this past weekend, I participated in a Eagle ceremony, and Scouting always has held a piece of my heart. Myself, my daughter, my son, we were all Scouts in some way, shape, or form. And this past weekend, it was a great outdoor Eagle ceremony, and I want to wish Carter White a best wishes on his future endeavors. And like several of my colleagues have reported, today was the ribbon cutting for the Veterans Independence Project Veterans Center. I was honored to have participated in the ceremony, but also pleased to have a new nonprofit join our community to offer another source of assistance for those in need. Carroll County does a great job in collaborating with other nonprofits and to help those in need in our community. And I'm a huge proponent of wraparound services and excited for them to join in with all the other talented caring folks that we have in our community. There can never be enough resources to help anyone. So I'm excited to add them to our list of resources. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. Mr. Chiavacci.
Just following up a little bit with both Councilwoman Gilbert and Councilman Dayhoff related to Carroll County Veterans Independence, and the mayor, she mentioned it too. It was a great ceremony. I agree. It's good to have all these services. One thing that I did want to bring up publicly, I know that I sent an email to all of you just to kind of give you a heads up because it was going to be talked about today. Councilman Hoff and I met with them, the Carroll County Veterans Independence Project. I guess he's the executive director. Is that what Sadak's name is? We met with him and he took us on a tour of the facility at the end of last week, and it led us to a discussion relative to potentially looking to put banners out on Main Street for Veterans Day and potentially then subsequently next year, Memorial Day. Obviously, Veterans Day would be an opportunity to have some banners for currently serving on active duty or folks that previously served. If their families or loved ones wanted to honor them or organizations wanted to honor them, could also be deceased service members also that would be honored on that day. Memorial Day obviously would be for fallen veterans. But we talked about potentially partnering so that the Independence Project could use it as a fundraising vehicle. And then, of course, the benefit for the city is it would look really great, and it's a way for the city to help that organization. They can use it as a fundraiser. Plus, it's something I think that I think most of you would agree would be kind of a pretty cool thing to have downtown. It's pretty common in a lot of towns. I know when I drive up to Indiana, Pennsylvania to visit my one daughter at school, it seems like every town I drive through during Veterans Day, around that time, they have those banners up. And it just looks really neat. I think it's a cool thing, and hopefully all of you will agree. Maybe what we'll do is my thinking and if you guys want to give me your feedback now, or if we want to talk about it in a future meeting, I'm thinking that, as Public Works Chair, I can kind of coordinate that with Mr. Glass and the Independence Project, and we can kind of work together to figure out how many poles there might be, what it will take on your part to potentially do it. It would probably be the same locations. We put Christmas decorations up, the same poles, maybe different hardware. We'd have to talk about, that potentially. The way I would envision it is the Independence Project would manage all the money side of it. They would purchase the manners. They would take the money, they'd use it as a fundraiser. Our only responsibility would be one, allowing them to use the poles, and then two, the man hours to put them up, the bucket truck and the guys to go up and do it. So there's an investment on our part. My suspicion is that it would be something that your department would probably be at least somewhat honored to do. It's a job, but so there will be a cost to the city, obviously in labor, but there should be no real cash outlay on the city's part. So again, I know this is coming as a big surprise to any of you because I did shoot an email out, but I guess I'm sort of laying the groundwork to get your permission to move forward with this, with the Independence Project. Maybe we do that in the form of a resolution, or I don't know. Or we just all say, okay, hey, yeah, we're going to make it happen. Maybe that's good enough.
Well, why don't we do this unless anybody has an objection? We'll have the Public Works Committee go ahead and look into this, and I think we have to have some conversation with staff, including Ms. Levan, about how all this works out.
Okay.
And report back to us and with the best path forward.
Sounds good, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Mr. Hoff, anything you'd like to share tonight?
Mr. President, nope, nothing additional.
Okay, thank you. Just like to make one observation myself. I read an article over the weekend about Corbett's chart, and I think all of you will recall that it's been some time back in 2003. I was on the council at the time. We've been talking a lot about Corbett's chart and its historic significance, and Westminster's a little important role in both Civil War and in larger national events. And we decided that we wanted to start commemorating that. So the city created a commemorative committee to start planning an event, which has gone on for many years, became more formalized over the years. And I really am not sure what the city's actual role in making any of this happen anymore is. And I don't know exactly what's happening this year, but I did see in the article that for some reason there's been some hiccup in terms of the way the event usually transpires, which is that the encampment usually takes place here in the grounds here at City Hall. It was noted in the article that for some reason, somebody who's involved in that was unable to support it. I certainly don't think that was on the city's part. I can't believe it would have been. So I don't know what's happened. I just want to express my concern that it's being interrupted this year in that regard, because I think it's a fine tradition and we're glad to celebrate it. And in no way, I hope, was the city responsible for that happening. Perhaps we can work with whoever needs to be, worked with to make sure that this doesn't happen again in the future. That's why I make that observation. But it was certainly not, I think, any desire on the part of the city for it not to happen. And I think that concludes our council comments and discussion. Under bids, we have one item, approval of the ERP conversion to Munis software. And for that, we'll return to our finance director, Ms. Colson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Approximately 10 years ago, the city of Westminster implemented the Eden software provided by Tyler Technologies as the ERP system. Recently, Tyler Technologies has made Eden customers aware that they are no longer going to be providing updates to the software. This will result in Eden becoming obsolete and eventually unusable as technology changes. Staff obtained quotes from multiple companies, Tyler Technologies, GovSense, AccuFund, and OpenGov. Out of those companies, it was determined that Tyler Technologies, GovSense, and OpenGov offered solutions that would meet the needs of the city. Of the three quotes provided, Tyler Technologies provided the most favorable option. The other two quotes were approximately double the price of that of Tyler Technologies. At this time, staff recommends that the mayor and common council approve the attached software as a service agreement with the Tyler Technologies for implementation of the Munis software program. I am available for any questions, should you have any.
Thank you very much, Ms. Colston. May I have a motion on this?
So moved. I'll move it.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. Dayhoff to approve the bid and a second by Mr. Chiavacci. Are there any questions for Ms. Colston or is there any discussion?
Mr. President.
Mr. Dayhoff?
So I understand that what it's being proposed is going to work well with the beacon system also?
It is
Okay,
compatible.
okay. Mr. Glass? Yeah, okay. Because that's been a hang up in the past. So maybe, okay. That's my only question.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Dayhoff.
President.
Mr. Glass, did you, sorry, Mr. Hoff, I'm sorry.
My question is just so I have a better understanding from a budgetary standpoint. I'm assuming we're paying some sort of recurring fee right now for our existing software. Is that the case?
Correct.
So the recurring fee that we're going to be paying, is that already included in this upcoming year's
It is.
budget number?
Yes.
And the number is matches or in line with what the recurring amount is going to be?
The amount budgeted for this year, upcoming year, was the amount that would cost for Munis.
Okay.
So that's been accounted for.
And then for the implementation cost and the conversion cost and all of that.
Yep.
Where is that coming out of from a budgetary standpoint?
From the CIP, from the capital projects fund.
Okay, so and that was that specifically allocated for this
Yep.
upcoming year? Okay. So all of this has been covered within the budget for the future year, and I have to apologize because I'm new.
That's
These are
quite
just
all right.
questions that occur to me as I'm reviewing this to have a better understanding.
Yeah, it has been in there, and it's something that technology and I have been discussing for quite a few months because we knew it was coming, and rather than wait with everybody else jumping ship, we wanted to be proactive and get ahead of the curve. So that's why we had planned for it for this upcoming budget year.
Okay, and you all are very comfortable with the software as far as, because full disclosure, my wife works in IT, and I know sometimes people have this impression, whatever the cheapest thing is what we should do, but you don't want to just do the cheapest thing. You want the thing that's going to work.
Correct.
Because sometimes you can get, sucked in and then there's extra fees down the road. So my impression from reading all the documentation is that you all, not only is this the least expensive alternative, but you're very happy with the software.
Correct. We all sat through 3 or 4 days worth of demos of the various modules and whatnot, and it seems to be pretty comprehensive and will definitely meet our needs.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Right, thank you, Ms. Colston. Thank you, Mr. Hoff. And I neglected to mention that the Finance Committee had been thoroughly briefed on this, the previous Finance Committee, Mr. Hoff, before you joined the council and the committee, so you obviously have not been aware of these things, but Ms. Colston has been consulting with us regularly on this along the way.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Chiavacci.
So I wanted to make one quick comment. The implementation cost is pretty significant, but not shocking given what software costs. But I have to say the reoccurring fee is less than what I would have expected it to be. We just went through this with my company. It's a nightmare, first of all, doing this transition. But I know given the size of my company relative to the size of this operation and what we're paying for a reoccurring fee compared to what I pay for a reoccurring fee for my company, I'm surprised how low this is. This is actually pretty reasonable, given the scope of what we're going to be running through this software, which I know you don't usually hear coming from me very often in terms of saying. So I'm actually pleasantly surprised that it's $70,000 a year. I assumed it would be significantly more than that on a per annum basis. That includes all the support and everything, right, that we're going to need. Yeah, so I'm pretty pleased about that, honestly, Mr. President. Thank you.
Maybe Ms. Colston needs to start doing your negotiating for you.
I think she does. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ms. Colston. Any further, if I don't hear any further comments or questions, I take it that we're ready for the vote. All those in favor of approving the bid, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have it, and the ayes have it. And the bid is approved. Thank you, Mr. Colston. We have 3 items tonight under ordinances and resolutions. The first one is adoption of ordinance number 934, amending chapter 164 zoning and subdivision of land of the Westminster City Code, Article 1, general provisions, Article 8, B business zone, Article 10, IR restricted industrial zone, Article 11, IG general industrial zone, Article 12, PI planned industrial zone, Article 18, regulations applicable, I studied my Roman numerals. Regulations applicable in all districts, and Article 20, special provisions to allow a new solar collector and facility use as permitted use or special exception use. And for that, we'll turn to Mr. Depot.
Thank you and good evening. This is some background. On April 12th, 2021, ordinance 934 was introduced to the council. At this meeting, the council referred the ordinance to the commission for its review and recommendation. Following this meeting, staff was able to meet with some solar businesses, Alder Energy Systems and Paradise Energy Solutions regarding the proposed text amendments. And as a result of these discussions in collaboration with these representatives, planning staff amended the draft text to address some of the conditions. And these amendments are referenced in the staff report itself. These amendments were then and the ordinance was presented to the commission on May 13th, 2021. At this meeting, the planning commission recommended approval to the council with subject to specific changes. These included, one, allowing the new solar facility roof mounted use as a permitted use in the B zone, IR zone, IG, and PI. Initially, it was as a special exception. Also, to allow modifications or flexibility for solar collectors located on non-flat roofs. Just to explain that real quick, we require that, or the ordinance requires that a non-residential or commercial building throughout regardless of zoning district, can allow a solar collector on the roof as long as that solar collector is providing energy for that property. We started getting some phone calls and some actual applications that are looking at this use itself, and they were on slanted roofs. So staff did add some flexibility with the rewrite to address non-flat roofs for these uses. Now, if you're a single family house and you want solar collectors on your roof and you're providing power solely for your property, that's by right. You just submit your permit, you go through. This does not address those. Those are just, that's fine. They're good to go. I'm sorry. So with that, DCPD staff recommends that proposed ordinance 934 provided in attachment 5, and this is page 202 of the staff report, as recommended to the mayor and common council by the Planning and Zoning Commission for approval from the May 13th, 2021 meeting, and is further amended as referenced by the Planning Commission and in the staff report, be approved by the mayor and common council. And I'm available for any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Depot, and thanks for that great recap. Let's get a motion on the table here. We need a motion for adoption. Have a motion, please.
I'll move, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. There's been a motion for adoption by Mr. Chiavacci. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And there's a second by Mr. Hoff. Any questions from Mr. Depot or any discussion?
Mr. President.
Mr. Chiavacci.
Mr. Depot, if they are generating more energy than what they're consuming in the commercial building, that's not allowed?
That would be allowed.
Is
So
allowed.
that's the solar collector is I'm providing solar for my property. There might be, through the way it works, one month like
Yeah,
use more than
depending on
needed.
usage and also how sunny it is. Yep.
But principally, it's to provide power for your site. The solar facility is that utility essentially. I'm providing panels on the rooftop for sale.
And so it can go back into the grid.
Yes, it goes back in the grid
And it's really specifically built for that.
yes,
not-
exactly.
And, okay, and we're saying that's gonna be okay.
That would be permitted by right in those specific zoning districts, those commercials. And that follows a state program.
Mhm.
And that's what started this whole discussion.
Pretty dire need for electricity right now.
Yes.
Good. I just want to make sure I was completely clear on what I'm looking at. Good, thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you, Mr. Chiavacci. Any other questions or comments, discussion? I think this is something we've all discussed before and felt pretty positive about. I'm not sure that we need to
Mr.
spend
President,
much more time on it. Ms. Gilbert.
I do have one question.
Sure.
So, and I was just, because one, I do not know, so you're going to educate me on this. So what happens, say, the business who has the solar panels goes out of business? Who then becomes responsible for disposing of, or would it be the next buyer of that business that would take over those solar panels? Like, kind of what happens at that transition time? Or are they, like, what happens if they're left?
And that's, so for the solar collectors, that not so much likely. If it's providing power for the site, you would assume anybody buying it is also buying the solar panels.
Okay.
The solar facilities, it does state in the regulations that if they cease to exist, if that company doesn't operate anymore, they had to remove it. The company itself would have to then remove those panels
Mhm.
from the building.
Okay,
And there's always that option that if another entity was to come in, you certainly would allow that, so removal wouldn't have to happen. But if they were to leave and just move, it is providing their.
there is a provision.
All right, very good, thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. Dayhoff?
so is it bonded?
No, it is not.
Is that something we may want to think about?
In case they do move, we would want them removed.
Yeah.
Haven't given too much thought about that. I don't know if we want to do that.
I've been reading a lot about that recently, about abandoned solar panels, because the technology is changing so rapidly. And with economic turmoil, there's been some panels left up on top of rooftops.
It's
So, I
certainly-
mean, I don't know if I'll defer to your judgment. Perhaps it's something we can look at in the future.
Well, the ordinance, and just for intent purposes, in case the question comes up, the idea is to try to provide as much flexibility
Yeah.
and ability to modifications in this. If it's not clear, that is the intent in case this comes up in the future. But ultimately, there is that regulation that the zoning administrator can ask for more. So we don't necessarily have to add it in the draft text, but if that is something that we want to look at moving forward, it is something we can do as part of that approval process.
Mr. President, I would like it looked into.
All right,
I do.
Mr. Depot will be glad to do that for us.
I do.
Thank you.
Mr.
Alright.
President.
Mr. Hoff?
My comment, Mr. Depot, is that, correct me if I'm wrong, these solar facilities are going to be smaller in size. When we dealt with this on the county level, we were talking about acres of solar panels. And there, we did have a bonding requirement when we were talking about that at Carroll County Planning and Zoning. But this is strikes me, because we're within the city, a much different animal, because we're not going to be having acres of solar fields within the city limits. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct. Again,
This is roof mounted. There's only so much, so some of what Mr. Dayhoff might have been reading about is talking about when you have these larger scale facilities where you have 5 to 10 acres or 15 acres of solar panels, then definitely you don't want to abandon solar panel field 20 years from now. But this is much more limited in scope. Correct me if I'm misinterpreting.
You're not,
Yes.
that is correct. This ordinance is solely for rooftop only. We felt that ground mounted just isn't appropriate in the city setting. It is more appropriate in the county when you have more land available for such use. But it would be rooftop only. And we can certainly, again, look into how other jurisdictions handle bonding of rooftop equipment.
Because, a roof, managing commercial properties like I do, has a limited life as well. So if I have solar panels that go up on my roof, 30 years from now, or depending on the roof, 50 years from now, you're going to have to address it at some point in time anyway. But you would have the flexibility within the ordinance, the way it's drafted, to put that requirement depending on the nature of what you're looking at. And I think it's important we have some flexibility here.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Mr. President.
Mr. Chiavacci?
Yeah, kind of dovetailing with what Councilman Hoff is saying, I agree. This is a different animal than a field. And I mean, we don't make people bond out air conditioning units that they put on top of their roofs and worry about what they're going to do with them later. And I don't really see this that different. It's a piece of equipment. It's not, it's not an environmentally dangerous item that's going to be left behind that we're going to have to deal with like a, abandoned gas tank underground. I think it's more from maybe a visual perspective. If it's on a slanted roof, on a flat roof, you're not even really going to see it. So I'd be reluctant to try to hem them up with too much requirements and bonding and things like that, because I think it's a positive thing. I think we all agree that there's a need for it. And if a business has the opportunity to generate a little positive revenue by using their rooftop, to do so, I'd like to see that happen with as little encumbrance as possible. Because again, I think that I'm not looking at that. A lot of commercial roofs have lots of equipment on top of them already, and we're not going to try to dictate to them what they've got to do. If the building sits vacant or is abandoned or something like that. So I don't see this any different. That's it, Mr. President.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chiavacci. I noticed, Mr. Depot, that in the supplementary material that you provided, there's a couple of places that mentioned a requirement for a decommissioning plan that some communities have, and I don't see that reflected in our ordinance. Is that something you'll do administratively?
That's something we could do administratively, yes.
Okay, very good, thank you. And I noted you had at least one guest on the screen, and I know there's a gentleman here. Did you require any additional discussion on this from anybody else?
No. I mean, I'm available for any questions Mr. Powell has or this gentleman.
Because we don't normally take questions during council sessions.
I wasn't gonna ask a question. I was gonna let you know that I own race-based bicycles, and it is my roof that's.
Okay.
And if anybody had any questions about, I truly expected two other guests today from Paradise Energy Solutions.
You should have taken
I
that.
should have taken you on that bet. John,
You may just be I owe you. But I do know some of the things that, can I answer some of the things that are out there or not?
Well, we usually don't.
That's fine.
We usually don't do that.
Nope.
I think we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
Just if I could,
Mr. Depot.
I did contact the gentleman that the company is working with, and the text as written would allow the solar panels on that property.
Okay, very great. All right, thank you. All right, is there any further discussion? I think we've got a pretty thoughtful ordinance here. And Mr. Depot is prepared to follow up with a couple of things that may be necessary administratively. So I'll put it to the vote. All those in favor of the ordinance, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have it, the ayes have it, and the ordinance is adopted. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
There's panels up.
That's right, let's get it up and let's get some power flowing. The next item is adoption of amended ordinance number 935 of the Mayor and Common Council of Westminster of Maryland, approving and adopting a budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022. We haven't even gotten to July 1st yet. We've already been in the budget. Go ahead anyway, Ms. Colson.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you're aware, in accordance of Article 2 of the Charter of the City of Westminster, the city administrator prepared a proposed budget on behalf of the mayor for the Common Council's consideration. And as such, Ordinance 935 was adopted on May 10th, 2021. During a subsequent review of the adopted ordinance, it was discovered that an old version of the ordinance was inadvertently used instead of the final correct one. As a result, the adopted ordinance needed to be revised. The net change to the general fund is an increase of $1. At this point, the recommendation is that staff recommends that Mayor and Common Council adopt the amended budget ordinance number 935. And I'm available for questions should you have them.
I've got about 10 questions, Mr. President.
This has already cost us more than that $1. I would have gladly given her the buck to make it all go away. Any questions from Ms. Cole? Well, let's get a motion. We have a motion, please, to adopt.
Only Mr. Chiavacci could introduce this.
I'll move to adopt, Mr. President.
A motion by Mr. Chiavacci, may I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Dayhoff. Anything, any questions from Ms. Colson or anything anybody would like to add? Or should we waste more time on this? Hearing nothing, we'll move on. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have, the ayes have it. And we have fixed the budget. Thank you. And now, the next item is for introduction of ordinance number 936, an ordinance amending chapter 7, boards and commissions to add article, is that a 6, article 6, I guess, Westminster Fiber Commission to create an advisory body generally charged for.
Article 4.
Is it 4?
That's 4.
I guess it's a 4, it's a very small.
Oh, it's a small
It's a
B.
small V.
Small V, yeah,
Small
yeah,
V.
small V, I guess, all right. And Article 4, Westminster Fiber Commission to create an advisory body generally charged with matters relating to the Westminster Fiber Network. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion by Mr. Dayhoff and a second by Ms. Gilbert. This is being sponsored by Mr. Chiavacci and the mayor, so I will let them have first crack at any comments on this.
Madam Mayor, I've been doing a lot of talking tonight.
I'm happy to take over for a bit. So what this ordinance is proposing to introduce is a commission to work on the Westminster Fiber Network. Not within the city, we have a pretty good handle on that. But there would be 3 goals of this mission, a short-term, medium-term, and a long-term goal. The short-term goal would be for the commission to begin, and this has already started, but would follow us up to begin to expand the Westminster Fiber Network outside the city. There's about 8,000 additional households outside the city that are on city water and sewer that are primed for the Westminster Fiber Network. And so the first order of business would be to get as many households of those outside the city limits signed up with our fiber network here. The medium term is to really begin to collaborate with the county to extend to some further areas within the county. And so the county has a fiber, broadband fiber from sort of location to location. And the goal would be to work in with that and to work with the county. So it would be a great collaborative effort with the county. And then longer term goals, possibly create a regional fiber network. Can we even expand a little bit farther for that? The ordinance would call for a commission of 7 members that would help advise myself and Councilman Chiavacci on some of the work and to really do a lot of the networking for the fiber and to help improve our fiber project. Sort of envision this sort of longer term goal.
All right, thank you.
And I'd be happy to answer any questions about it that anyone might have for the introduction.
Can I just add one thing to it, Mr. President?
Chiavacci?
And I think one of the part of the impetus behind this is that we, as often is the case, don't always possess all the expertise and information to make the most informed. So we rely on other folks to help us. We do that with staff all the time where they're telling us as the experts, kind of what their opinion is, and we weigh that. I think we're trying to use this as a vehicle in which we can gather information to, as a group, when I say group, the 6 of us, or 6 future elected officials, where they can rely on people who really have more expertise and understanding related to this specific issue that can advise us, very much like our other boards and commissions do. And we don't really have that right now. We don't have a collective group of individuals that have the expertise that we need, but they're out there. They're in the community. And I believe if and when we adopt this, the mayor will come back with recommendations to populate this entity with people who will be able to give us that advice. So that's as much what we're looking to do here as anything, because this board or commission, I should say, is not going to have any authority to ultimately do anything. The authority still rests with this body. They're going to be an advisory commission for us.
Yeah, like a little research arm that's going to go out and do that.
And they'll certainly be talking to folks. I would envision they will meet with people and talk about things and get balls headed in the right direction, but none of it's going to happen without it coming from this body.
Mr. President.
Mr. Hoff.
The only other 2 comments I wanted to make, just to kind of reemphasize the importance, what I believe is the importance of this commission is, obviously there is a lot of funding floating around out there. And, I would argue that, Westminster was ahead of the curve with fiber. And I think that we want to, exploit the ability to expand the fiber network to provide, the kind of great service we have within the city to our residents that are not our residents, but are the residents that are on our public water, public sewer system. And there might be some funding opportunities to help accomplish that simply were not around when we originally did the fiber network within the city limits. So I think that's an important point when we're thinking about this and the importance of this. And also, I just want to emphasize, it's been an issue that I've heard talked about at some of the national conventions I've been at related to real estate. And then the pandemic kind of really accelerated that. Fiber is becoming the new public water, public sewer. It is critically important. I know during the pandemic, when I was at home with my great internet service, and I had my 2 children and my wife all working at one time and had no issues, I'm talking to friends that live outside the city limits that are having all kinds of issues. So I think the pandemic has really exposed how forward vision Westminster was with their fiber network. And if we can now offer that and help, and frankly, work with the county as well to help the county out to be able to provide that quality service outside the city limits, that is just a great thing to do and to have that collaboration. So I am obviously fully supportive of us, forming this commission. And I think, as Mr. Chiavacci says, we need the expertise. Conceptually, I love it, but we need to have a commission filled with people that really understand this really well. So anyway.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Hoff. Any other thoughts?
No, Mr. President, I was going to say something, but I think all of my colleagues have hit the nail on the head with everything from.
Listen, come back in a few weeks and you'll have a chance to go first next time.
That's okay. That's okay. I don't mind. I think we're all on the same page, to be honest.
Very good. All right. Hearing nothing else, we'll move on to vote. I remind you that this is for introduction only tonight. All those in favor of introducing ordinance number 936, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have it. The ayes have it. And we will schedule this for adoption at a future meeting. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is unfinished business. There is no unfinished business for which I'm aware, unless anybody else has any. Move on to new business. The first item under new business is approval of the vaccination incentive program. Ms. Colston.
Thank you, Mr. President. During the council meeting on May 24th, 2021, Mayor Mona Becker suggested providing an incentive payment to employees who have received or will receive the coronavirus vaccine. A coronavirus vaccine incentive of $100 will be available to all full-time city employees. Employees must show their completed vaccination card to HR and sign a pledge to receive the booster when available in order to receive the incentive. Funds for the incentive will come from a contingency account in the Legislative and Executive Department of the 2021 budget. At this time, staff recommends reserving funds from the fiscal year 2021 contingency account in the Legislative and Executive Department budget to be used for a vaccine incentive in the upcoming budget year. And I am available for any questions, should you have any.
Thank you, Ms. Colston. Mayor Becker.
Yes, the one thing that I do want to change.
Okay.
Sorry, is also regular part-time employees as well. So it would be, there's 4, I think.
Okay.
Or so. So it would be regular full-time city employees and regular part-time city employees. The only thing other thing I'd just like to say is that when we think about, and I had mentioned this, I think at the last council meeting, we were all virtual. So, well, no, we weren't at that point in time. The 6 of us weren't, but with vaccine incentives, and when we think about moving forward, I think about sort of the public works department, public safety, those sorts of issues that would be difficult for us to face many of our employees being in quarantine at the same time or being ill at the same time. And it would keep the workplace safer. I think it would make colleagues feel safer and customers as well, since the city is in the business of public service. So.
Right. Thank you, Mayor Becker. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? I guess we need a motion just to approve the incentive program. May I have a motion?
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to approve the vaccine incentive program with the understanding that it would be full-time employees and the regular part-time employees.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Hoff. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion by Mr. Hoff and a second by Ms. Gilbert. Any discussion? Madam Mayor, I would assume that because vaccines are easily and readily and quickly available in our community these days, as opposed to the way they once were, doesn't take a long time to get signed up and get in line and all that, part of this, although we don't need to put it in the policy, part of this would be, I would hope that we would encourage all of our department heads and supervisors to encourage their staff to go and get them if they have not yet done so, and take time to, if they're at work, to run out and get their vaccine and come back to work.
Absolutely.
Mr. President,
Mr. Chiavacci?
on that note, do we want to put a time limit on this?
Oh, on how long this
End
lasts?
date.
Yeah.
An end date?
That's a
You
good
gotta do it
idea.
by a certain date.
You want to say end of the summer? Or do you want to say?
End of August.
September?
End of September, end of September, I'm fine
End
with
of
that.
September?
Fine
End
with
of
that.
September,
Okay,
yeah.
how's that?
I actually have it written down my notes, end date.
Very
Yeah,
good.
end of September.
A little incentive to get it done. All right. Any other comments or questions?
So do we need to modify that motion or no?
Why don't we just, without objection, the, end date shall be the end of September, last day of September, 2021. Excuse me. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move on to a vote. All those in favor of approving the employee coronavirus vaccine incentive program, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have, the ayes have it. And it is adopted. I have to note, unfortunately for former Mayor Dominic, said that he wanted to participate, but he will not be eligible to come and show us.
It's not for elected officials.
It's not for like.
Whoa. Count on that $100.
You're gonna beat the beer and barbecue stroll?
I am,
I'll buy a beer.
fair enough.
What more could you ask? All right, thank you. And that concludes that item. The next item of new business is approval of Warner Construction change order number 25. How many numbers can we get to? Mr. Glass?
Hopefully not more than 25. As you're aware, Warner Construction is the general contractor for the work at the renovation of 45 West Main. Before you is proposed change order number 25, and it's comprised of 3 work items and 1 electricity use credit. The first item is already approved change order number 4, which was unfortunately had not been forwarded to finance for payment. That work, as you may recall, was for testing and repair of existing line sets for some remain in place HVAC equipment, and also for some rock excavation for flagpole foundations at the building. That cost was $5,662.33. In addition, and again, that has already been approved, but not yet paid for. So this came from the architect as still as change order number 24. Really should be change order 25 because 24 is already approved and we have a few more items to kind of tidy up. The next item was additional tactile ADA signage that was required during county inspection. And that total cost was $1,304.31. That's an add as well. We had unfortunately some landscape repair costs of $617.98 to repair and replace some damaged work and plant material that was caused by a vehicle which ran over the curb and into a landscape bed. And as I understand it, we know at least one of the perpetrators, and we're investigating that for reimbursement as well. But nonetheless, we will have to pay the contractor the $617.98 until then. The last thing is an electrical usage credit. As you know, the contractor was responsible for our utility bills up until the time of substantial completion. That amount was $9,839.93, which will be a credit. And overall, once we go back to include the unpaid change order number 24 and the additions, this actually turns into an overall credit of $1,843.58, just due to the canceling nature of the adds and the deducts. And so at this point, we would recommend that the common council approve the change order number 25 and the credit amount of $1,843.58. This amount will also be, and another thing I probably should mention, this change order needs to be finalized so that the credit of $1,800 will be included in their last pay request as well. So that will be a deduct in their last pay request. This was necessary in order to get that last pay request. I'm available for any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Glass. And we have a motion on change order number 25.
I'll move, Mr. President.
Thank you. There's a motion by Mr. Chiavacci to approve, I presume, change order number 25. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hoff. Any discussion or any questions from Mr. Glass? On what he
Mr.
is
President,
suggesting may well be the last change order. Yes.
Mr. President,
Ms. Gilbert.
since this is possibly the last change order, I'm assuming we're narrowing down to the end of the project. So I have a question. It doesn't really necessarily coincide with this change order, but I'm just curious. When you look at the front of the building, the letters BB and T are very clear on the front of the building.
True.
Is there any thought as to maybe covering that up or blending it into the wall a little better? Because just as a normal everyday person looking at it, it looks kind of tacky.
I agree.
I had noticed.
I agree 100%.
So we paid for a change order to have the building detergent washed and pressure washed as well. And we're not satisfied with the results of that work. That's supposed to remove that, not just that, but other items on the building that, and the overall dinginess that the appearance has in places. So we're aware of that,
Okay.
and hopefully we'll be able to take care of that, get it resolved with the contractor then.
Okay,
It's
thank
part
you.
of the punch list stuff.
Okay, thank you. I know we're getting down to the end and I was just curious because after spending everything that we've spent on it, I kind of hate for 3 little letters to make it look kind of weird. And yeah,
That's correct.
It is your expectation that doing the job properly should be able to take care of that?
Well, that was the idea behind it. So
We'll hope.
again, I'm not satisfied with the work as it's been done so far. So second try. Hopefully we'll be going by that time.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. All those in favor, unless I hear any further discussion, we'll go on to a vote. All those in favor of approval of change order number 25, please say aye.
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 And all those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have it, the ayes have it, and the change order is approved. Thank you. Mr. Chiavacci, you have a motion for
Mr.
us?
President, I have a motion to go into a closed session under the statutory authority to close a session under the Maryland Annotated Code of General Provisions 3-305B. 1, to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matters that affect one or more specific individuals. Under subsection 7, to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice on a legal matter, and under subsection 8, to consult with staff, consultants, and or other individuals about pending or potential litigation. The reasons are to discuss legal counsel, for counsel related to P&Z, and outside counsel regarding some other public works matters.
Thank you, Mr. Chiavacci. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hoff. There's been a motion by Mr. Chiavacci and a second by Mr. Hoff. to go into a closed session. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have it, and the ayes have it. And the mayor and council go into a closed session at the conclusion of our regular meeting. And now it's time for departmental reports. And to begin that, let me say, Mr. Deutsch, welcome. It's a pleasure to see you and all of your team members here in person with us tonight.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me start this evening with Mr. Davidson.
Good afternoon. Just letting you know the camera work, the camera project has started. We're just waiting on a couple pieces to finish up. Did have training today. And I think it was 2 hours after the one set of cameras run, the graffiti people playground capture on that couple of those cameras.
Thank you. Devo, how are you?
The Historic District Commission and Board of Zoning Appeals had no items for them this month, so they were canceled. The Planning Commission had a sole item that was an increase the amount of permits allowed for Stonegate subdivision. They're allowed 40 a year. The increase allows 8 additional. My understanding, they will want to come back for even more, which is a good sign. They're developing out pretty quick, the site. And we have water already set aside for them, so that's not an issue.
Got to make hay when you can make hay, right?
Yeah, we did receive a grant from the state for Main Street through the COVID to provide some extra funds. We were able to provide funds to 26 businesses in downtown Westminster, up to $2,500 per grant. And we are working with the finance department on getting those monies out.
Mr. President,
Mr. Chiavacci.
could we have a list of
Yes.
those who received that funding, please?
Absolutely, I do have a list. I was planning to send that out to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Next, is my report.
Thank you, sir. Chief.
Good evening. So I know it was in the newspaper and Councilman Chiavacci mentioned a little bit earlier, but we just wanted to remind everyone that if you lived in the Stonegate, around Webster Street, Fenby Farm, or Meadow Branch neighborhoods, and you did not report a theft from auto, we did end up charging a gentleman for a series of thefts from autos in those neighborhoods. So please contact us on our non-emergency number if you have any information related to those. We are planning a community cookout. We've been collaborating with part of our local community contacts to do an end of school event tomorrow from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Charles Street Tot Lot. So if you live close to there or a resident want to stop by, we're going to have barbecue, food, drinks, and some entertainment. All the food and drinks were donated by local businesses, so we thank them. Myself and Captain Yor attended a Maryland Chiefs of Police and Maryland Police Commission training session last week to discuss all the legislation that was passed during this previous session that will affect the police department and operations. And on the good note, we're well ahead of the curve in many aspects. I think will require little policy change on our part. There are some training requirements, some things that we're going to have to figure out moving forward that are going to be developed at the commission level. Things such as a mental health evaluation every 2 years for all of our officers, a physical agility testing program on an annual basis and how that'll work. So there are a lot of specifics that were brought up question-wise as far as, workers' comp, injury, what happens if somebody doesn't pass, what's the process there. There's also they repealed the law enforcement officers' Bill of Rights completely. And in its place for citizen-generated complaints, they've tasked the counties for putting together an accountability board and a charging board or panel that is going to be appointed at the county level that will then essentially be making personnel decisions for the municipal employees. So I would request that when that process is occurring, that at the municipal level, we get involved in that process, seeing that, the outcome will directly affect our municipal employees. These are all issues that were discussed and are germane to everybody across the state of Maryland. Fortunately, a lot of it does not go into place until July 1 of 2022. So we do have a bit of a window to plan for it. Some of it does go into effect October 1st of this year. The things that are going into effect this year were pretty much set and in place, ready to handle. I know several of you brought up the bicycle patrol, and I thank you. We just purchased from Race Pace 2 e-bikes that we were able to obtain some grant funds through the Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention to purchase. And I've been using one of them, and I can say that, at 53 years of age, I've been able to get from Stonegate all the way over to the Greens and down to Fenby Farm, and with very little effort. So I think it's been great because I'm able to hit the neighborhoods, the back alleys, have a lot of good citizen interactions. And we've just trained, I think 5 additional officers on it. I know the deputy chiefs get trained. So I think that combined with our regular bike patrol is ideal for the community. And that's all I have, unless you have any
We
questions.
get a council version of one of those bikes? Of course, it would have to be heavy duty up.
Are you gonna-
It needs an extra battery pack for me.
If you'd like to ride a bicycle, you let me know. I'll get your bike for a few weeks.
Chief, I assume this is the
I might
police
have to stop
interceptor.
by.
This is the police interceptor
like
version with
e-bike.
the special gears and chains that gives you a lot more
High speed.
power, high speed, right?
Yeah, the e-bike, the premise behind it is when you need the boost on the pedals, it gives you that little bit of extra boost. And depending on the amount of battery that you draw on, you can go anywhere from eco to turbo. And so, some of the hills, in the city are pretty steep. So I've been very thankful, and I think it's a great tool.
Very good.
Awesome.
Thank you.
100%.
Thank you, Chief. Ms. Colston.
Thank you. I have nothing to add tonight unless you have any questions.
Thank you. Let me go to the other side of the room. Ms. Gruber.
Good evening. I am happy to report that the pool renovation project was posted to the city's website and email and marketplace on June 8th. We do have a mandatory pre-bid meeting scheduled for June 16th at 10 a.m. So that is moving productively forward. On June 17th, our municipal pool opens for 7-day-a-week operations. We're only able to open on the weekends until Carroll County Public Schools lets out because that's where most of our staff come from. So we're looking forward to getting fully into the swing of things for our pool season. Of course, as we've talked a little bit this evening, on June 19th is our beer and barbecue stroll. We had our logistics meeting today for setup with our streets department. So everything is adequately in place for that event. We again are watching a forecast that seems a little unsettled. So fingers crossed that, maybe we paid it forward enough during Flower and Jazz that we'll have a decent Saturday. And on June 21st, our 10-week summer day camp program begins. And so we are looking at welcoming 60 young people into our Westminster City Park campus for 10 weeks to take us into the end of summer. And as Mr. Dayhoff, Councilman Dayhoff addressed in his Recreation and Parks report, we are planning a special grand opening celebration at our new Tahoma Park playground installation on July 13th. And that will be held in conjunction with the Recreation and Park Advisory Board. So we're looking forward to officially welcoming our community to that playground on the 13th of July as part of our Recreation and Parks Month celebrations. However, it is open to the public now. And this concludes my report unless there are questions.
Mr. President.
Mr. Chiavacci.
I've had 2 different people come up and thank me for that park. Two separate instances. I, of course, told them both I didn't have much to do with it other than just voting yes, but so it's already getting a lot of positive feedback.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. Dayhoff.
it's like an art installation. It really is. It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's way cool. Maybe we can get the mayor to come down there with her podium and give a presentation at the parks opening.
A 3-minute talk.
3-minute talk with your podium.
And we'll have to go down the slide.
Maybe, oh, okay.
Mr. President,
Ms. Gilbert.
well, I am excited to see it in person now because seeing it in paper and seeing it in person is amazing. And I know at one point in time, there was a part 2.
Correct.
Is that still a possibility or probability,
Yeah,
or
that
is that for the future to be seen based on funding?
If you can obtain funding for it, it will happen. So we haven't had any funding opportunities available to us at this juncture, but there will be an opportunity to apply for community parks and playgrounds funding towards the end of summer.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Not that you don't have plenty on your plate right now anyway, but I just thought I'd ask.
Thank you. Yes.
County's so fair in its distribution of glass.
So we have 3 projects that are completed and closed out. These are the annual paving project, the ADA curb replacements, and the both parking garage rehab projects as well. The Diffendall parking lot retaining wall is underway. I don't know if maybe in driving by, you may have seen right now they're working on repointing the brick sections that are exposed. They're doing that while they're waiting on the precast concrete to be delivered. So the hope was to have that completed by the end of June, but alas, I don't think that's going to happen. I think there was some pull up with the precast. If it comes in time, we still may make it, but I would say we're probably not going to at this juncture. The info and infiltration project is moving along quite well as well. It has been slowed a bit due to the amount of groundwater that they've encountered, which is the exact reason why we're doing the info and infiltration project. It just makes the lining go a little bit slower, but it's really good that this is additional water that we're keeping out of the sewer system. With regard to reuse, all of the components, the individualized components that make up this treatment train are all connected. Most are operational. We did receive a setback with the delivery of some ultraviolet radiation lamps that were delivered. So we really can't put that part online yet. And so I can't say the whole thing is completely operational until we get these new lamps. They're expected next week. We will, later this week, CMC will be on site to do some videography as well. It's referred to as B-roll footage. That work will be included in some video that we'll have produced later in the process. The idea behind that is that while we're operational, you can have as many tours come through and show as many people as you can show, but when it's over, it's over. If we have a video that we can keep on the website or have available for the future, that'll last forever then, or as long as we want to keep that going. So that's what the B-roll is set up to do now, is to show kind of the beginning parts of the assembly and calibration and that kind of thing. So we're pretty excited about that as well. Councilman Chiavacci made mention of some informational materials that we have generated, and they will be go out in the next water bills. Matter of fact, I think it's within a number of days that will go out. It's introducing the project to the users of the system, and hopefully we'll answer some questions and let everybody know what we're doing. That's all I have, unless there are questions for me.
Mr. President.
Mr. Dayhoff.
So we're still making some progress though with the I&I. If I'm not mistaken, I think I asked last week during the height of the rainstorm, we had a GPD of about 9.1 gallons. Is that what it was?
9.1 million gallons.
Yeah, 1 million gallons.
That's
Right.
correct. And in a rainstorm like that, what's
We would have had more in the past.
closer to 20 probably.
Yeah, because we're rated, we've built it to 22.
We've passed 22 million before.
Yeah, yeah. And we had 9, so that's.
A significant reduction. This
Yeah.
is a little bit of background. In year 2018, our average flows through the treatment plant were between 6 and 6.5 million. It's designed for 5, actually.
Mhm.
And I was just down there the other day, and the relatively normal flows were at the low 4 million, 4.1 million. So that's a rather significant reduction from the 2018. It's a reflection of the money that's been made available and the work that we've been able to do to make the reduction in the extraneous groundwater. It doesn't need to be treated, shouldn't be in the sewer system. Once this phase 3 I&I is complete, we're going to see significant changes there again. So
That's great.
Mr. President, another
Mr.
follow-up.
Dayhoff.
When we finish with the gravity wall at Diffendall lot, Ms. Gruber and the Recreation and Parks Advisory Board, we're going to come forward with a mural project on that. And that'll be exciting too, because I think that's going to be really important to economic development. And I think having some murals in downtown Westminster, I think will be a really good thing to really add. So we'll start working on that. I think that's all the questions I have, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dayhoff. Very good, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Glass.
yes, sir.
Mr. Pecoraro, I don't know whether the 2 staff members who are not with us tonight are on via Zoom or not. That would be Mr. Brown and Ms. McCullough.
Does not appear that they are.
Okay, I'd like to just make one comment, Mr. President, and that is to mention that city sent out informational material to various commercial entities regarding the implementation of the plastic bag prohibition effective July 1. We sent out material over the last 2 weeks. We have not had a reaction from those companies that are affected. As council recall, you passed an ordinance 2 years ago and then deferred it to avoid additional COVID impacts on businesses. And you also recall that this does not apply to most mom and pop businesses, if you will, small entities. Restaurants, takeouts are excluded as well. So it affects large retailers, and we're prepared to assist them as they raise questions based on the information that was provided. Thank you, sir.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Dayhoff.
But I've gotten a lot of really positive feedback about the plastic ban. And interestingly enough, we may have exempted many of the smaller mom and pops, but they're the ones that, many of them are the ones that are already providing paper bags.
Yes, that's true.
Many of the restaurants are providing paper bags, and it seems to be accepted really well. I think it's extremely important that we do that for the environment. And once again, we're the leader in the area for that. So, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. All right, and although she didn't give a report, Ms. Levan, it's always a pleasure to see you as well. Thank you for coming back.
A pleasure to be here.
All right, and so that concludes our departmental reports. Thank you, Mr. Deutsch. Great to hear from everybody tonight and to see so many of them. Now, the last item on our agenda is citizen comments. And this is the time during the meeting when we invite the public to address the mayor and council on any issues that pertain to tonight's agenda or any other city issues. During the virtual meetings, we've been asking people to send their comments to our city clerk at comments@westgov.com. We will continue that practice for those who are unable to attend meetings in person. Commenters should include their address and phone number with their comments, and we'll continue to share them as appropriate. I do have one virtual comment that we did receive for this meeting, and that was from a Mr. John Dempsey on the WTTR Lane, who writes, I have a question concerning future meetings. The live stream of all the city meetings on Facebook has been a very valuable resource to keep citizens connected through COVID, and I wanted to reach out and ask if the meetings will continue to be streamed. With restrictions lifted on COVID, there are still people in town who can sometimes not make it to a meeting due to scheduling conflicts, work schedules, physical disabilities, and the lack of transportation. Since the technology is already in place, I would like to see these meetings continue to be streamed for those who cannot attend. Thank you. And I'll just reiterate what I said at the outset of the meeting, which is that it is certainly our intention to continue to live stream these meetings. We We do understand that it's a valuable service. We were surprised at the number of people who are watching during the pandemic. And while I'm sure the people who have better things to do with their time, now that the pandemic is ending, I'm sure that there will still be people who want to tune in or perhaps even catch recordings. What? That's right. That's right. Is there anybody who would like to be heard tonight who's present? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address for the record.
Alex Obrecht, and I own Race Pace Bicycles. So 3 or 4 things that came up tonight, I'll make a comment on. First, I appreciate everybody likes the fact that the police are riding bicycles. I really like the fact that the police are riding bicycles. And, thanks for those. Thanks, Chief, for riding. Thanks for you going out and riding, and thanks for buying from us. Somebody just mentioned plastic bags. We haven't used plastic bags in any of our 7 locations of Race Pace Bicycles for over 20 years. We use a fully compostable bag, and we have for, I think it's 22 years now, so we've never given a customer a plastic bag.
Good.
And as a small business owner, in fact, I'm giving a talk at the Greater Baltimore Business Council on Wednesday pertaining to sustainability and things of that nature. So plastic bag ban is, I'm all in on that. And thanks for.
And I recall you shared that with us at the time we adopted the ban.
Well, I think I did
At
share.
the time, you did, yes, sir.
Yeah.
And thanks for moving forward on the solar. I endeavor to have the buildings I own within my 7 stores, all are getting solar this year. This is the only one in Carroll County, but I was surprised to find that we weren't moving forward on this contract because it wasn't allowed in the city. And I'm glad that the council and moved quickly to, I guess that was, are we good to go there?
Once we have it signed and.
Great. That was it. Thanks very much.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else like to be heard? Yes, sir.
Kevin Wagman, 153 East Green Street. This is the first public meeting normal people, except I'm not normal, or allowed. So I wanted to welcome Mayor Dr. Becker and Councilman Hoff, and also congratulate Mr. Chiavacci on being reelected. And also thank you 3 that work to keep these 3 and it's not easy. And
No.
I also wanted to thank Mayor Dominic and Councilman Inland for their last 4 years of moving Westminster forward. I have one other thing, Mr. Glass. You mentioned that we were done the sidewalk safety things. Now on Court Street, we installed one, but they never painted the lines on it. So maybe they can do that. They are old lines further around the corner, but they never connected where the yellow pads are. I only know that because I walk the streets and the alleys. Other than that, no one would ever know unless they appear in court over at Court Street. Hopefully, even though my picture's out at the post office, I haven't had to appear. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you.
So if I could respond, actually 2 different projects there. One was a contractor to do the ramp itself and the street department to do the lines. And the lines will come with lining of all the other parts of the streets as well. So it's in motion. It just hasn't happened just yet.
It wasn't a complaint, more so because we as a city are lucky to have all the men and women in the street department. I said this before, maybe, let's say there are 9,000 cities in the US. I would think 8,900 would be lucky to be in the situation Westminster is. We, as a citizen for only 39 years, what a blessing to have a city like this.
Thank you, Steve.
Mr. Wagner, thank you for those kind words. With that, I think that will conclude our agenda and the meeting. Our next regular meeting will be canceled due to some members of the elected body as well as some staff attending the Maryland Municipal League Annual Conference at the end of the month. And so our next regular meeting will be held on Monday, July 12th. And with that, without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.